Yo, what's good? It's your man 100 Grand Ross with The Rock Never Stops. Would y'all just sit back and let Monty Williams cook? I want to dive into that in this video. If you enjoy it, smash the like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. Look, the reason why I'm saying would y'all let Monty Williams cook is because the man knows what he's doing. Is he the perfect coach? Hell no. But who is? Was Larry Brown the perfect coach? Nope. Was Pat Riley? Nope. Was Phil Jackson? Hell no. Was Greg Popovich? Is Greg Popovich the perfect coach? No. And yet, these guys win championships. They have their pedigree. And I can go on and on. You see, sometimes we get caught up in focusing on what the coach is not doing, and we forget to recognize what they are doing. And I want to dive into that in this video. One of the first things I want to point out is, does my man know how to push buttons or does he know how to push buttons? Look, it's one thing to be able to create a scheme, to create a system, and to be able to communicate it so people know what you're asking of them. But it's another thing to be able to know how to push the buttons of your players so that they respond how you're needing them to in order to maximize that system. And he's doing exactly that. He started off with Jaden Ivey. He sat his behind on the bench and said, look, until you can limit these turnovers, until you can play with a certain level of intensity and effort, you're not going to get the playing time. And a lot of us were like, we can't miss out on his offense. We need his offense. This is what we need. And then all of a sudden, we saw the difference. We saw Killian go out there and execute. And what we also realized is this team is highly turnover prone. You cannot have your primary guard averaging 4 more turnovers every single game, especially when Cade, your franchise player, is already doing that. Now, some of that is because we understand we're giving him a level of an offensive load that, is going to predispose him to turnovers. But at the same time, Cade Cunningham's ball handling has been a little sus. It's been a little sus. And on top of that, he's made some poor decisions, forcing passes, making quick errant passes that have been deflections turned into steals going the other way, right? And he's still dealing with that. You need a steady hand next to him as a guard who's playing off of him. And that is not Jaden Ivey. Now, do we miss his offense? Hell yes. Do we miss that explosiveness in transition or ability to get downhill at the rim? Hell yes. But here's number 2. What we're also recognizing is that he's got a dog in Marcus Sasser. And he's got one hell of a floor general in Killian. Killian reminds me of probably another Tyus Jones, especially the more we see him playing confidently, the more we see him getting into his bag, getting into the middle of the paint, being able to shoot that floater and it's dropping, and then spotting up off the ball. He looks excellent running the show with a high assist to turnover ratio. And when he's in the game, all of a sudden, you can get into your offensive sets. You see, Monty Williams knows what he has, probably far better than a lot of us do. He's in the practices, all right? And I want to dive into that in a moment. But he's in the practices. He was in the training camp. He knows what this team needs, and he knows that they're young as hell. And so when we're looking at these things, we recognize that the moves he's making have a lot more, make a lot more sense when we see it play out, right? As sometimes they say, there's a method to my madness, right? Let me work. There's a method to it. There's a reason why I'm doing these moves that you may not understand or even agree with. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is I love that he's having practices on game days. Look, these players on his team are extremely young, and they need all the reps that they can get. And one of the things that clearly he's done is he's increased the intensity in practice. If you listen to the post-game report by Isaiah Stewart, he said, we just had one of the hardest practices I think that we've had of the entire season. And he said, we were ready to come into this game. Then you listen to Cade Cunningham, and he said, we finally got our swag back. A lot of that, I think, is probably from increasing practices. which a lot of times, especially for veteran teams, they don't have as many practices in order to preserve the legs of the players and allow them to find, a better balance between their work life, play life, being able to relax, recover, not putting all the wear and tear on their bodies. Now, that makes sense when you're 28, 29, 30 and up, right? Makes a lot of sense. If you're 19, 20, 21, 22, and you haven't even played that much in the NBA, you need all the reps you can get. Now, one of the things that I saw in this game against the Knicks is that they played their asses off. And when I say they played their asses off, I mean they were playing at damn near a playoff level of intensity. And what it exposed was that they were not used to it. They were slinging this ball around. It was flying out of bounds. Guys weren't expecting passes. Guys were making passes too soon. Guys didn't have their hands up. Guys were, that ball was just flying out of bounds. And yet, you can tell that the intensity that they were playing at was the requisite level of intensity that Monty Williams had been speaking of. He said, look, we are not good enough to win against anybody without playing at this high level of intensity. If we are not playing at this level, we don't stand a chance. We don't execute well enough. We don't know who we are well enough. We haven't learned the game enough. And so as a result, he made sure that they came into this game playing at 110%, that they were going so hard that they could fly through a brick wall. And that's what we saw the entire game. We also noticed the guys who are used to moving at that pace and at that speed. And if we're honest, the only person who looked like they're used to moving at that speed and executing with skill and intentionality and balance on the court was probably Killian Hayes. That was probably the only one who was able to play at that speed and be under control the whole time. The next person who was probably the next one up was probably Marcus Sasser. He was under control the majority of the time, being very decisive with his decision-making, being able to get to his spots, get his shot off, his confidence. He found his rhythm quickly, and he was able to make a huge contribution. And then the next player was probably Cade Cunningham. Now, as for these practices, things that he's finding out about his team is who's actually ready. Who's actually ready? And this is where I want to get to my man Isaiah Livers. I love putting him in the starting lineup. If I'm honest with you, I want to see a starting lineup. And this might be blasphemy. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section. I want to see a starting lineup without Isaiah Stewart. If they're playing a team that has a small ball four, like the Atlanta Hawks, where they play a forward who's really kind of a small forward, but who's a little bit taller, but it's still kind of light, right? Some of these teams that don't have a Giannis or a Julius Randle, go ahead and bring Isaiah Stewart off the bench and start Isaiah Livers. Because his shooting, his playmaking, and his ability to defend with that versatility makes a huge difference in that starting lineup. I think it takes a huge burden off of Cade Cunningham in terms of spacing and Killian Hayes. And it really opened things up and allowed the offense to flow. Now, I don't want Isaiah Stewart to change his game at all, right? But I said this a while ago. If he is not going to knock down his threes at a high level, you cannot start him. You cannot start him because your offense gets off to too bad of a start and you get buried early. Now, he shot his three ball decent today, but he's got to be consistent. And I want to see them play with this lineup. Should I also rather them also try to play Asar Thompson in the starting lineup without Isaiah Stewart, right? Especially if Jalen Duren goes out, knock on wood, God forbid, but he is a bit injury prone early on. If he's out, start Isaiah Stewart and play Asar Thompson with Isaiah Livers and Killian Hayes and Cade Cunningham. But moving forward, I don't expect Monty Williams to put Jaden Ivey back in the starting lineup. I don't want that. I completely want Killian Hayes starting alongside of Cade Cunningham. His assist-to-turnover ratio is amazing. And when I say amazing, I mean it's top in the NBA. In the NBA, not amongst young players, not just on this team. In the NBA, he's not turning the ball over. And that is huge for this team. He's also getting more confident with his offensive game. Now that he's more physically ready to play, he's got the experience, and he plays great defense on and off the ball. You couldn't ask for more. I also want to see Marcus Sasser as the first guard off the bench. I'm sorry, he's proving it. He's proving it. We're seeing it. We still love Jaden Ivey. We still love him. We still give him all the respect in the world, right? Shoot, play him instead of Alec Burks, who's turning the ball over and not shooting at a high clip. I don't care. But Marcus Sasser has earned and deserves these minutes, and I want to see him continue to get it. Yo, as always, I want to know what you all think. Holler at me in the comment section. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'm going to get at y'all next time. Peace.